How's it going? Tuesday, May 30th, 2023. Baseball records. Stolen bases. Who could lay claim to be the greatest base stealer in baseball history? Who in the Baseball Hall of Fame has the most stolen bases? You should know the answer to that. Rickey Henderson, 1,406 career stolen bases. His high was 130, 1982. Can you imagine that? You play, the normal baseball season is 162 games. And in 1982, Rickey Henderson stole 130 bases. How many games did he play that year? Let's look that up. Rickey Henderson in 1982. How many games did he play? He played 149 games and stole 130 bases. Almost a stolen base per game played. Remarkable season. Remarkable base stealer. He got on and took second, and a lot of times took third in the same inning. 1,406. Who's number two? Lou Brock. 938 career stolen bases. He had the record. He had 118 one year. 1974. Now, let's see who's a better base stealer. Is it Rickey Henderson or Lou Brock? Who do you think? Rickey Henderson played 3,081 games. And that's how he got to 1,406. How about Lou Brock? How many games did he play? 2,616 and got to 938. So basically, Henderson plays about 400 more games than Lou Brock. 400. Do you know how many stolen bases more Rickey Henderson has than Lou Brock? He has 468 more in his career, yet he played 400 more games. So he's averaging about, if he played 3,000 games and had 1,400 stolen bases, that's about every second game or every second and a half game, Rickey Henderson is stealing a base. In Lou Brock's case, he had 2,600 games and 938 stolen bases. So again, he's about every 2.5 games stealing a base. Who's better, Henderson or Brock at stealing bases? I'm going to have to give it to Henderson. Even though he has 400 more games, he had 468 more stolen bases. But he's only averaging a stolen base for every other game. It's not every game. So if Lou Brock has an extra 400 games, he's only stealing every other game. He would have had 200 more games. He would have ended up with about 1,138 if he has the same number of games as Rickey Henderson. How about Billy Hamilton? He's number 3, 914 career stolen bases. How many games did it take for Hamilton to get that many? This is interesting. Hamilton, 1,594 games and 914 career stolen bases. So he's about a game and a half, every game and a half, stealing a base. 914, listen to this. Rickey Henderson has 1,400 more games than Billy Hamilton. Give Billy Hamilton 1,400 more games to match the same number as Rickey Henderson. How many stolen bases would Billy Hamilton have ended up with? This is an interesting question because Hamilton, every game and a half, is stealing a base. So let's say it's every 2 games. 1,400 more games would give 700 more stolen bases. 914 for Hamilton plus 700. Hamilton could have ended up with 1,600 stolen bases if he plays the same number of games as Ricky Henderson. Now, who's better base stealer? Hamilton or Henderson? According to the what-if scenario, Billy Hamilton is a better base stealer. Listen to this. He had 111 was his high, 1889. Next year, he had 102, and then he had 111. 3 years in a row, over 100 stolen bases. And then about 3 years later, he steals another 100. And then he had a 97. So he has 4 seasons of over 100. And he has one that is just shy of 100. So that's 5 seasons almost, or 5 seasons of basically 100 steals in 1 year. How many seasons did Ricky Henderson have of 100 stolen bases? 3. 1980 had 100. Then he had 130, which was a record. And then he had 108. So he had 3. Where Hamilton almost had 5. He had 4, and he had 197. You have to give that Henderson had a 93 1 year. So Henderson could have had 4, but Hamilton could have had 5. Where Brock, he had an 118, but that was his high. He had some 80s. He had an 80. Did he have an 80? No, his 118 was his high. So Brock, not in the conversation. But Hamilton and Henderson and Hamilton are in the conversation of debating who is a better base stealer. I'm going to have to give it to Billy Hamilton so far. But who's the other guy? Ty Cobb. He's number 4. 897 stolen bases, but his high was 96, so never had over 100. And he played over 3,000 games, so he's not in the conversation. Tim Raines, 808. His high was 90. No. Eddie Collins, 741. His high was 82. Next on the list are Max Carey, 738. Honus Wagner, 723. Joe Morgan, 689. George Davis, 619. Ozzie Smith, 580. These are career stolen bases, and I'm dealing with Hall of Famers. Hugh Duffy, 574. Bid McPhee, 568. Here's a guy. John Ward had over 100 1 year. He had 111. His career is 540. So John Ward stole 540 bases. How many years did he play? Well, he had 1,800 games. So 540 stolen bases, 1,800 games. No, he's not in the conversation. Even though he's the 4th guy, there's 4 guys who have stolen over 100 bases in the Hall of Fame in a season. Ricky Henderson, 130, was his high. Lou Brock had 118. Billy Hamilton had 111. And John Ward's the other guy. He had 111 1 year. These are the premier base stealers in the Baseball Hall of Fame. You'd have to say, even though Ward had 111, he wouldn't be the 4th guy. You have to say the 4th top base stealers in the Baseball Hall of Fame. You got to go with Billy Hamilton, number 1, because of his ratio of stolen bases per games played. 1,500 games, 914 stolen bases. Whereas Henderson, 1,400 stolen bases, but it took him 3,000 games. So Hamilton's number 1. He's premier. And he lays claim as the best base stealer in baseball history. Sorry, Henderson. You played all the extra games. You give Billy Hamilton 1,400 games. He surpasses you in base stealing, according to his ratio. He would have had probably 1,600 stolen bases if he had played the same number of games as you, Ricky. Debatable question. So I would put Hamilton 1, Henderson 2. Those are the top two. Who would you do as far as 3 and 4? You got Cobb, 897, but he played 3,000 games. Brock has 938, but he played 2,600 games. So Brock beats Cobb with less games played. So number 3 is Lou Brock. And then you got to go with Ty Cobb being number 4. He had 897, which is number 4 on the list. So Hamilton, Henderson, Brock, Cobb. Top 4 base stealers in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Got Maury Wills was a good base stealer, but he's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame, so I'm not going to count him here. Maury Wills. How come he didn't make the Baseball Hall of Fame? Well, let's look at his numbers. I'll see if I can get him up here. Maury Wills. Here he is. Let's look at his base stealing numbers. Because I know he had a good year one year. Yeah, he stole 104 bases in 1962. How about that? And he had 586 for his career. He played 1,900 games. Give him another 1,000 games to match Henderson, and he would have had about 1,200 stolen bases, so he wouldn't have matched him. But Wills didn't make the Hall of Fame. He had 2,100 career hits. Career batting average 281. You know, he started late. I think that's what happened to Maury Wills. He started at age 26, and then he went till age 39. So just 1,900 games. You give Maury Wills about 3,000 games. Maybe he has about 2,800 hits, and maybe his batting average could have been in the 290s, and maybe he would have had about 900 stolen bases. So Wills was on pace for the Hall of Fame, but he only had a 14-year career. So we'll have to discount Maury Wills as far as one of the greatest. He is a good base stealer, 104 one year, but he's not in the top 5. You got to give Hamilton number 1, Henderson number 2, Brock number 3, Cobb number 4. And the other guy is Tim Raines. He had 808. See, he had more than Maury Wills. So maybe Tim Raines would be up there. What about John Ward? No. So what do you think of the analysis? Do you agree or disagree? Billy Hamilton, the greatest base stealer in the Baseball Hall of Fame. 914 stolen bases in only about 1,600 games. Rickey Henderson, 1,400 stolen bases, but it took him over 3,000 games to do it. Let's look at the other guys in the Hall of Fame with career stolen bases. Bid McPhee, 568. John Ward, 540. Okay, Fred Clark, 509. Louis Aparicio, 506. Paul Molitor, 504. So those are the guys. You have 16 guys with 500 or more stolen bases in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Paul Molitor, 504. That's pretty impressive. Willie Keeler, 495. Roberto Alomar, 474. Tom McCarthy, 468. Ed Delonte, 455. He was a big guy. Big Ed, they called him. Joe Kelly, 443. Tris Speaker, 436. 345 career batting average and 436 stolen bases. Good combination. You have the batting average and the stolen bases. Frankie Frisch, 419. Craig Biggio, 414. Biggio had a high of 50 one year. It's pretty good. You know that Joe Kelly, I forgot to mention him. He had 87 one year. That's very good. How about Tommy McCarthy? He had 93. Bid McPhee had 95. So some of these guys have a really good year, but they didn't get enough for the career. I think Craig Biggio should have had more because he played a long time. 414. But he's in the 3,000 hit club. I think Biggio should have had over 500. Should have stole more. Frank Chance, 403. Jesse Burkett, 389. Nap Lajoie, 380. Barry Larkin, 379. George Sisler, 375. Gary Hooper, 375. King Kelly, 368. Sam Crawford, 367. Huey Jennings, 359. Jennings had 70 one year. That's pretty good. If you can have over 50 stolen bases in a year, you're good. You're really good. Derek Jeter, 358. Buck Ewing, 354. Rod Carew, 353. Sam Rice, 351. Ryan Sandberg, 344. Willie Mays, number 40 on the list as far as Baseball Hall of Famers. 338. His high was 40. Joe Tinker, 336. Elmer Flick, 330. Kiki Kyler, 328. Johnny Evers, 324. Tony Gwynn, 319. 319 for his career. 20-year career. Should have had more. Tony should have had it. Should have had like 500. Jake Beckley, 315. Andre Dawson, 314. Rabbit Marinville, 291. Robin Yount, 271. Ed Roosh, 268. Who's the guy that has over 500 home runs who I've mentioned so far? Willie Mays. It's the only guy so far. A combination of steals and home runs. 338 for Mays. He's the only guy so far with over 500 home runs that's in the top 40. How about that? So Mays had power and speed. Rabbit Marinville, 291. Robin Yount, 271. Ed Roosh, 268. Dan Brothers, 259. Roger Connor, 244. Cap Hansen, and Henry Aaron, 240. There's the second guy, Aaron. Over 500 homers. In fact, over 700 homers. And he's in the top 54 in stolen bases. He has 240 career. His high was only 31. You know, Aaron should have had more stolen bases because he got on a lot. He should have had 500 stolen bases. Alan Trammell, 236. Frank Baker, 235. Richie Ashburn, 234. Pee Wee Wee Sam Thompson, 232. Larry Walker, 230. That's the top 60. Jim O'Rourke, 229. Here's the third guy. 500 or more homers. And a lot of stolen bases. Reggie Jackson, 228. 563 homers, 228 stolen bases. I like the combination of home run and stolen bases, don't you? Mays, Aaron, and Jackson. Dave Winfield, 223. Minnie Minosa, 216. Roger Brejahan, 212. Zach Wheat, 205. Frank Robinson, there's the fourth guy. 500 homers, 204 career stolen bases. Not bad. Jeff Bagwell, 202. George Brett, 201. Bobby Wallace, 201. Jackie Robinson, 200 stolen bases in 10 years. Give him another 10 years, he has 400. 72, Pete Rose, 198 stolen bases. Now, kind of disappointed, Pete. You have 3,562 games played, yet you only have 198 stolen bases. Come on, Pete. You should be in the 500 club as far as stolen bases. You were on a lot. You have 4,256 hits. So if you're on, should have stolen more stolen bases. Now, I'm counting down 169 players. 168 of them are in the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose is 169th. And he is number 72 on the list of my 169 I'm counting. 198 stolen bases, but Pete, you have the most games played. You should have had 500 stolen bases. Why didn't he run? Well, he had a lot of doubles, so you're not stealing third. But he had a lot of singles, too. He had over 3,000 singles. And how many times were you on base with nobody on second base? You could have taken stolen base. You have the speed. Why only 198 stolen bases, Pete? Jimmy Collins, 194. Ken Griffey, there's another power hitter, 184. So you got Mays, Aaron, Jackson, Frank Robinson, and now Ken Griffey. 500 stolen bases. 500 homers, over 500 homers. And in Griffey's case, 184 stolen bases. Vladimir Guerrero, 181. Charlie Gehringer, 181. Luke Appring, 179. Ray Chalk, 177. Goose Goslin, 176. Kyle Yastrzemski, 168. All right, that covers 80 guys, the first 80. And the cutoff is 168 stolen bases. We've established the fact that Billy Hamilton is the greatest base stealer in baseball history, according to his ratio of stolen bases per games played. The top 80. Next video, I'll cover 81 through 169. A lot of these guys had potential. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to point out some guys that should have had more stolen bases in that list. Talk to you later. I'm out.